Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 1993 Saturn SL2. Up front is a 1.9 liter inline 4, and down below is a 5-speed manual transmission. Now, I'm super excited to be driving this Saturn SL2 for two reasons. First of all, it's a very clean example of an SL2. You just don't really see these cars much anymore, and I'm excited to share it with you. It's manual, it's great, all that stuff. But the second reason is the fact that I've been driving a lot of Saturns, and I'm excited to dig into the beginning, the early days of the Saturn brand, why it came about, how it came about, and how it set itself up for potential failure. But if you'd like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. And if you'd like to see all my videos weeks or sometimes months in advance, you can head on over to my Patreon for only $5 a month. But let's get back to that 1.9 liter inline 4 under the hood. Well, because this is the SL2, that means it got the dual cam engine. I'll put the horsepower up on the screen. It's not a whole lot, so don't expect too much out of this dual cam. However, this is the engine that you want. I've driven a lot of the single cams. They are just kind of lazy. This one feels a lot freer, feels a lot more airier. It's a lot better of a driving experience, so I'd highly recommend seeking out the dual cam if at all possible. Now, like I said, paired to it is a 5-speed manual transmission. Technically, this vehicle has been swapped from an automatic to a manual. The owner did it himself with a donor car, so it's all the proper equipment for a manual transmission. However, this particular car came automatic from the factory and was swapped. Last but not least about the drivetrain, of course, the SL2 is front-wheel drive. How does it feel to drive the Saturn SL2? It's actually really lovely, especially with the manual and the dual cam. That is the winning combination. It honestly drives like a similar era Honda Civic. It's buzzy, it's fun, it's low horsepower, but a stick shift, front wheel drive. Honestly, like back-to-back driving them, there's not much difference between this and a Civic, and that's a very good thing. The Civic was kind of the pinnacle of the time, and now EF Civics kind of carry a little bit of a premium. You could get a very similar driving experience out of this for a lot less money on the secondhand market. So if you just want something buzzy, stick, and fun from the 90s, take a look at the SL2. You might like what you see. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 4 gauges. Off to the left is the speedometer. In the center, we have fuel and coolant temperature. And off to the right is the tachometer. We also get our gauge dimmer switch to the bottom left and our rear defrost to the bottom right of the gauge cluster. On the steering wheel, we do get an airbag, which is very nice to see. 1993 was actually the first year that vehicles in the United States were legally required to have at least a driver's side airbag, and so the SL2 gets it. Off to the left, we do have a climate control vent, and moving on to the door, we have the latch to get in and out and power locks, but no power windows because that's actually found in the center. Moving into the center, we have 2 climate control vents. We have our Saturn radio that does have a CD player, but very nice. We get a lot of luxury options in here. We get our climate controls, very simple, fan speed up the top, where to send it in the middle, temperature down at the bottom. But then we have our cigarette lighter and our traction control. I have yet to see an early S series that has traction control, so this is a very unique and very special option that I didn't even know existed until this car. But then we do have an ashtray, shifter in the center, and then that's where you'll find the power windows, of which the driver's window is auto, window locks, and power mirrors. We do get a center console, and there is a fold-out cup holder in the center console, so we will do a big friggin' bottle test here in the SL2 from 93, and it fails, but we all knew it would. The seats are leather. Again, this was a pretty high trim level of the SL in 1993, so it got leather seats. I don't often see that in many Saturns that I review, so that is very nice. They are comfortable. They're hugging me here today, and I have no complaints. They are very nice. I'm actually almost shocked that it doesn't have heated seats. That's how nice this interior feels. But speaking of seats, we do have back seats, so let's go do a back seat review. All right, getting in the back of the Saturn SL2 SL2 from 1993, and as you can see, the leather seats carry on back here. Just a lot more premium of a look than some of the other SLs or really S-Series vehicles that I've driven from this era. So very, very nice to see that. Once we are in the back, unfortunately, it does not offer a whole lot more space than other SLs. Even how luxury this might feel, it is not any physically larger, so that's okay. But I am in the back of the SL. My knees are hitting the seat in front of me. My head's hitting the ceiling. We do have power window switches, though, so very, very nice to see that. We do, of course, have our ashtray down below. Gotta love that. Seat back pockets, all that. It's not a crazy good place to be, but no other vehicle in this era was. So like, I'm not like, oh, well, the Civic of this era had a great back seat, or the Corolla of this era had a great back seat, or the Mazda Protege, or, you know, the vehicles like this in this segment. It just wasn't a big backseat segment. It's not what it was meant to be. They were meant to be smaller vehicles, and so you feel that back here, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be any bigger. Let's hop into the back. We'll take a quick look at the trunk and cargo space, and then we'll talk about the looks. All right, we're on the back of the SL2, and I absolutely love this sticker that the owner has put on the body because obviously it is a plastic body. Open it up like that, and there you go. Nothing really too crazy. It's a Saturn SL2 trunk, tackle box, some tools. The owner did just take a road trip from up here in Milwaukee to Indiana and back, about 6 hours either way, and it did an absolutely great job at it. So just a couple of leftover tools just in case the inevitable happened, but it never actually did. So very, very cool, the rear trunk space of the SL2. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and I love the look of the SL2. First of all, this is lowered on coilovers as well as it does have aftermarket wheels. Well, besides that, it's a pretty body stock vehicle. What I recently learned is that when the Saturn program started, they actually brought a couple of designers over from the Oldsmobile team to design the early S-Series cars, being this, the SC and the SW. The reason that's important is because you can kind of notice some Oldsmobile design features in the design here of the Saturn SL. The rear wraparound window, the smaller headlights. Those sorts of little features almost reign very Oldsmobile, and so if you were to swap out the badges, I think this would actually fit in as a very basic bottom-of-the-barrel Oldsmobile product. Now, I'm glad that they never rebadged it as that, but they probably could have and gotten away with it. With all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving a Saturn SL2 from 1993? Well, obviously, this has been a great experience. I love Saturns, love filming Saturns. It's been good. This particular one drives great. Super notchy shifter and clutch, rev happy, dual cam motor, all of that together, again, really rivaled the Asian imports of the era. And I don't think that the SL gets enough credit for that. But let's roll it all the way back to the beginning of Saturn. And if you want to learn anything about the automotive industry ever, you could pin it on two different events: World War II and the oil crisis of the 70s. So we're going to talk about both. After World War II, Japan was pretty decimated. And so America actually started pumping money into their economy, and that's how Japan got their big boom. But Japan has always had an issue and problem with getting natural resources. Since they are an island, they don't naturally have any oil or gas, so they have to import everything. So their gas prices have always been high. It's always been hard to get gas and fuel in Japan. So from the get-go, post-World War II, Japan started building efficient four-cylinder engines. All of their cars had little efficient engines. And here in America, those didn't really catch on. Although Honda and Toyota came here in the 50s and 60s, they were these niche little sort of meh cars. They were sort of this B class of car, these little micro cars from an island. But then in the 1970s, we had two oil crises, and we had a very, very strict emissions crackdown here in the United States. And so we needed four cylinders. We needed efficient engines for the first time in our history. And so we tried to design some, us Americans, put our great minds to it and started building some more efficient cars. And that's what we got in the 1980s. We got the LeBaron that had a four-cylinder and the Ford Tempo and things like that. We saw this massive, massive downsizing, and American companies just didn't quite get it right. But Japan did. They had been building efficient 4-cylinders for decades before we did. And so once people realized how great they were, they started buying them in droves. And this scared the absolute shorts off of GM. So what did GM do? They tried to start their own import-style business. Efficient 4-cylinder, small cars that were very affordable. They wanted to take down the likes of Toyota and Honda. So in 1985, they incorporated Saturn. Now, throughout the late 80s, they would go and they would build a factory down in Spring Hill, Tennessee, and develop a completely new engine for their new products. They wanted to mimic the B Series and D Series that came from Honda. D Series being the single cam and B Series being the dual cam. And actually, funny enough, they put 3 of those engines into 3 different first-gen Cavaliers and drove them over 1 million miles of testing for their new little power plant. And they worked. They were good. They were efficient. And so in the 1990s, they launched Saturn, the 1990 for the 1991 model year. They started Saturn with the SL and then the SC and SW. And that's what we have here. This is GM's shot at the Japanese companies to try to beat them at their own game. Efficient, fun to drive, 4-cylinder, that's cheap. And you know what? They did a gosh darn good job at it. I would rival this against the Civic or Corolla of the era and bet my house on it. It is really, really solid. It's a fantastic driving car. It's a great car to drive. It's efficient. And I think that they hit it out of the park. And that's impressive for a newly founded company with a mishmash team of engineers and designers. So you might be thinking, Zach, that set them up for great success, right? That's for another day. I have plenty of videos talking about the downfall of Saturn. Spark Notes, too long didn't read. It took a lot of investment money to get Saturn off the ground. They didn't really recoup it as quickly as they wanted to, so they started rebadging and diluting the company. And by 2009, when the bailout came, it was pretty easy to pull the trigger and send Saturn to a farm. But again, that's for another day. This is the highlight of Saturn. This is when Saturn was firing on all cylinders. They took the fight to the Japanese automakers, and they almost won. They got gosh darn close. And I would say that this is probably the closest that GM has ever been to competing directly with Japanese automakers. And you drive a Civic or you drive an SL2 back-to-back, you're gonna feel very similar about the two. And boy, was it such a grudge match. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Ryan for letting me borrow his SL2 for today's video. Ryan has been absolutely wonderful. We met up at the Saturn Nationals event. Such a lovely event. Keep an eye out on that for next year. Almost 100 Saturns in one location in Indiana. Such a lovely, lovely event. And Ryan has been absolutely wonderful to work with, and I look forward to working with him again in the future. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.